Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Regan Elite here. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 103 of the Snowflake Viewpoint, where we cover the latest news from the UK. The date and time of this is the 9th of June 2025, just after 8 p.m. We are dual live streaming on twitch.tv/Regan Elite 1 and on youtube.com/Regan Elite. Apologies, I've just finished eating my dinner about 10 minutes ago, so I might feel a little bit bloated, so I apologize for that, guys. And also I had like errands literally just popped up literally 5 minutes before the live stream. Like, it's just terrible timing. Anyways, if somebody can just put a post on if someone who's here on Discord, if you can drop a post on Discord to remind people that I'm live, it would be greatly appreciated, because I normally do that and haven't had time to do that. And we greatly appreciate it. So we'll get going. Got quite a lot to cover, guys, as well as two funny videos here. Dave, again, it's good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Great 2 shows you had today. Much appreciated. Looking forward to tomorrow's one, as always. Ginger Lefty, good to see you there in the chat as well. Anybody else in the chat? Martin Brisk has just turned up there. Hello there. Good to see you there, buddy. Hope you are doing it well as well. Right. The first story, obviously, one of the... I would say the biggest story I would say from the UK, it's just come out, is obviously the change in the winter fuel payment, guys. So the winter fuel payment threshold is to rise to £35,000. Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, has announced the change would mean about 7.5 million pensioners in England and Wales who lost out on payment will have it restored. So what does this essentially mean, Because essentially what it means is that now they still, it's not universal still, so they still haven't done a full U-turn, but what they basically essentially done here is they've basically they decided to up the echelons and say, okay, we'll fresh it out for more people. And while I'm pleased about this, is this the thing is that will this satisfy people? I think it's the real question we have to ask ourselves. 7.5 million pensioners in England and Wales who lost out on payments having it restored. That's a huge chunk of voters. But let's be clear here. The fact that they did this originally and then they rolled back on this is quite embarrassing from the Labour government's perspective. This is essentially a U-turn. Like, they can argue but they didn't have the money before, but they have it now. They can make that argument all they want. This is essentially a partial, I call it a partial U-turn because it's not a full U-turn, because winter fuel payments should still be universal, in my opinion. I know we can agree to disagree on that, but I think it should be for everyone. But obviously, they don't want to do it like that. So it looks like they're trying to do like a halfway jib towards it. I did watch Phil Morehouse's video on response to this as well, and he made some valid points with regards to this as well. But will people keep talking about this? I don't know. Is this something that's still... that you can still bash the Labour government over with? I think there is, to a certain extent. I think there is still some people out there who will bash it. Will it be as harsh as other things that the Labour government have done? I would say no. I would say this is a step in the right direction for the Labour government. I do welcome this U-turn, partial U-turn, but I do think more can be done, and especially when we talk about some of the other issues that the government have been doing as well. So let's have a read into it. Vicky, good to see you there. And Sean Wall, good to see you both in the chat, and anybody else who's lurking as well. So all pensioners with an income of £35,000 or less than a year will have the winter fuel payment restored in full, Rachel Reeves has announced, after weeks of uncertainty over the decision to make a U-turn on scrapping the benefit. So ministers are restoring the automatic payment as a universal benefit this winter, and then recouping the money when higher income pensioners fill in their tax returns. So essentially, this is how they're going to recoup some of the money. It's basically those who are earning more, more than that, and then claim it, will be told, no, you need to pay that back by HMRC. Basically, is how they're going to do it. The partial reversal means that about 7.5 million pensioners in England and Wales who missed out on the payment up to £300 last year will now get it after a backlash against one of the government's most unpopular policies. The thing about this one as well, the way they're doing this as well, is that this puts the emphasis on the pensioner, on the person, to make sure that they send that money back, rather than them having to do more work in order to do so. So because they want to avoid doing as much paperwork around this as they can. The decision to limit the previous universal payment to all but the poorest pensioners was one of the first announcements by the Chancellor after Labour's landslide election victory last year, has been widely blamed for the party's collapse in public support. It had meant the number of pensioners receiving the payment was reduced by about 10 million, from full 11.4 million to 1.5 million, and after the change, 9 million pensioners will benefit this winter. So the government's reversal came despite Downing Street denying that it would make changes to winter fuel payments after The Guardian revealed that it was rethinking the cut amid anxiety at the top of the government that the policy could wreak serious electoral damage. The decision to prioritise paying the energy bills of some middle-class pensioners will embolden Labour MPs who have been urging the government to scrap the two-child benefit cap, which could lift an estimated 350,000 children out of poverty. This is the child poverty thing is something that I've been kicking and screaming about constantly, and I will continue to kick and scream about it because it needs to be said. It needs to be said what's happening with regards to poverty here in England in particular, but as a whole as well. The Chancellor Rachel Reeves has brought forward confirmation of the change to the 11,500 income threshold, over which pensioners are no longer eligible to next week's spending review from the autumn budget. Treasury officials said the new 35,000 threshold was well above the income level of pensioners in poverty and broadly in line with average earnings, balancing support for lower income pensioners with fairness to the taxpayer. So Reeves expected to set out how she intends to fund the change at the autumn budget, which is likely to lead to accusations that she is in effect making an unfunded pledge, although the Treasury insisted her physical rules would still be met. Yeah, so the spending review will say a lot. I've written it down. I still haven't checked. I still haven't got confirmation of when the spending review will be. I'm assuming it's still after Prime Minister's questions, but I still haven't confirmed that. Officials said the change would cost about 1.25 billion, and that 450 million would still be saved compared with the cost of restoring the payment to all pensioners. However, it was unclear whether the figure took into account tens of thousands more people now claiming pension credit. Targeting winter fuel payment was a tough decision, but the right decision because of the inheritance that we've been left by the previous government. It is also right that we continue to means test this payment so that it is targeted and fair, rather than restoring eligibility to everyone, including the wealthiest, Reeves has said. But we have now acted to expand the eligibility of the winter fuel payment, so no pensioner on a lower income will miss out. This will mean that over 3/4 of pensioners receiving the payment in England and Wales later this winter. So party activists said the Chancellor's decision to axe £1.5 billion in winter fuel payments last July came up repeatedly on the doorstep during last month's local elections. Anxious Labour MPs have been piling pressure on Keir Starmer to change his mind over the cut. Number 10 officials feared the strength of feeling could have an impact on their broader plans for welfare changes, with previous loyal backbenchers threatening to rebel in a crunch vote expected later in June. The option of paying all pensioners and their winter fuel payment and then asking wealthier people to repay the money is a similar approach to the taken by the former Conservative Chancellor George Osborne when he reduced child benefit eligibility for better off parents. What a bastard he was. Treasury officials were concerned that while creating a new means test would be a highly complex option, the new system would mean that bereaved families of tens of thousands of then pensioners could be pursued by tax officials to recoup the payments. What we need is fairness and not cruelty. Stop the cuts. Absolutely. That's definitely what we need more of. Pensioners will also be able to opt out of receiving the payment. And about 2 million individuals in England and Wales over state pension will have taxable incomes above 335,000, the Treasury has said. So the Scottish Government and the Northern Ireland Executive will both receive an uplift in their funding as a result of the change in England and Wales. So yeah, they'll get a bit an uplift, both Northern Ireland and Scotland, as a result of this as well. Caroline Abrahams of Age UK said the decision to restore the winter fuel payment to these pensioners, all but those on the highest income who should be able to pay their heating bills without it, is the right thing to do and something that will bring much needed reassurance for older people and their families. So yeah, this is obviously a obviously Age UK are much more in the weeds than I am, so they're saying that this is gives much needed assurance there, so it gives me great optimism. But even at last winter, you know, we were very, very scared, very, very concerned about pensioners and how they would cope during the winter. And I said if anybody died, obviously, as a result of the changes that they were making, there'd be a great deal of anger pointed at them. And there was no reports. They didn't see anything directly. Like, obviously, people sadly did die during the winter, but I don't think it was directly linked to the winter fuel cuts and changes. So in that regard, it was okay. But no death is okay for the reference. What I meant is nobody was saying that a person died as a direct result of cuts to winter fuel payments. What I'm saying, guys. But if we go into the winter where most pensioners are safe and they're okay and they're warm enough during the winter. That's a good thing, because that's the word, good thing, because we want people to be able to heat their homes and be nice and warm and toasty during the winters. So in that regard, it's really, really important, but it doesn't change the fact that we still have, excuse me, lots and lots of issues here. Lots and lots of issues. But I think the winter fuel one is probably down the list now in terms of issues that need to be addressed. Can more be done about pensions and pensioners? Yes, it can be more done. But I don't think now. I think now that perhaps maybe enough has been done on this. Good to see you there, Billy Kershaw. Hope you're doing well, and anybody else lurking in the chats. Right, this next one, really, it isn't so much UK, but I wanted to share it because it really kind of grind my gears. Because this is asking basically the UK, who are already spending a huge amount of money on defence, are being asked to pay more, which kind of pisses me off, guys. So the NATO chief is calling for a 400% increase, 400, in air and missile defence to maintain credible deterrent. This is the NATO chief calling this, right? Obviously, it's not just us, it's all NATO members, right? So Mark Rutte has called for a quantum leap in collective security. Amid expectations, the alliance will agree to a 5% defence spending target at a summit later this month. Like, we can't meet this obligation of 5% defence spending. Like, come on. Like, it's just ridiculous, guys. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, there are lines here we're talking about here. And the thing that really infuriates me is we've cut foreign aid to increase our own military and defence spending. And now you've got NATO here saying, oh, because obviously the threats of Russia, we need everyone to step up and spend more as well. So you've already got this happening in the UK. Now you've got this shit as well. Now, don't get me wrong, NATO needs to maintain a defence against Russia and any other enemies of all the alliances of NATO. But 400% is 400% really necessary. I have my reservations, if I'm honest on this. So NATO needs a 400% increase in air defence missiles to maintain a credible deterrence, its Secretary General said in a speech in London. Mark Rutte called for a quantum leap in collective security, warning threats facing the alliance will not disappear even when the war in Ukraine ends. This is 100% true. But we're talking about 400% increase. Like, this is just excessive. It comes ahead of the summit in The Hague later this month, when the UK and its NATO allies are expected to agree to a Donald Trump-inspired pledge to spend 5% of GDP on defence and related areas. Speaking at the Chatham House, Mr. Rutte said the investment plan is grounded on hard facts. He said the fact is we need a quantum leap in our collective defence. The fact is we must have more focus and capabilities to implement our defensive plan in full. The fact is danger will not disappear even when the war in Ukraine ends. Mr. Rutte argued that in order to maintain credible deterrence and defence, NATO needs a 400% increase in missile and air defence. Does he realise just how damaged that the Russian military have been over the past couple of years since this war in Ukraine? Does he realise that actually, you know, they're really worn out and that they're actually relying on China, they're relying on North Korea for support as well? It's not just Russia still using their war economy, but they're still relying on one or two other nations to keep them going because their economy is so shit right now because of all the sanctions that have been imposed on them. Does he realize how long it would take, as well, for Russia to build that army back up, as well as obviously winning back? Well, I say winning back, in order trying to recruit up a backup of the forces that they've had before as well when this war, whenever it ends. Like here's the thing, like, if NATO wanted to, NATO could invade Russia and win. And you know why they would win? It's because Russia is weak right now. They are weak, from this long, dragged-ass conflict with Ukraine. The only thing they've got in their hands is nuclear weapons, which they could fire at any moment. But I don't expect them to do that, if I'm honest. But if it's not Russia, who are we talking about here? Are we talking about China here? Are we talking about the need for China here? Is that what we're talking about? Like, where else am I? Like, I'm honestly thinking, like, what else are we going to need this defense for? Like, I just think it is exaggerated at a time when like, budgets are already being pushed by not just the UK, by other European countries as well here. To spend more on defence when people are already struggling. There is a cost of living crisis here in the UK, but there's also some of that happening in other parts of the world as well. We see in Ukraine how Russia delivers terror from above, so we will strengthen the shield that protects our skies, he said. Our militias need 1,000 more armored vehicles and tanks and millions more artillery shell. We must double our enabled capabilities such as logistics, supply, transportation, and medical support. Well, one thing I do know is obviously that the European Union are going to be boosting European Union, European nations as a whole are boosting their defence anyway, because they need to. Mr. Root also referenced to countries other than Russia that pose a threat to the alliance. He said that Russia has teamed up with China, North Korea, and Iran. They're expanding their militias and their capabilities. Putin's war machine is speeding up, not slowing down. I think that's just scaremongering. I think this is a bit of scaremongering, if I'm honest, right now. Like, I don't see Russia, China, North Korea, and Iran all uniting all of a sudden to take on the rest of the world. Like, I think that's a bit excessive right now. Is that possible perhaps in 10, 20 years' time? Maybe. Maybe, because we don't know what will happen in 10, 20 years' time. But to say that they're all ganging up on the rest of the world, I think that's a bit folly. It does sound a bit like scaremongering to people as well. He continued, in terms of ammunition, Russia produces in 3 months what the whole of NATO produces in a year, and its defence industry base is expected to roll out 1,500 tanks, 3,000 armoured vehicles, and 2,000 Iskia missiles this year alone. Russia could be ready to use military force against NATO within 5 years. You really think so? 5 years? I mean, it's gonna take a while. It's gonna take a while. China's also modernising and expanding its military at breakneck speed. It already has the world's largest navy, and its battle force is expected to grow to 435 ships by 2030. China doesn't seem like a country that wants to do world domination, though. I mean, its leader, and it doesn't come across to me as a nation that wants to dominate the world. Like, maybe that's just me. On the threats against the alliance, he also warned wishful thinking it will not keep us safe. We cannot dream away the danger. I hope it's not a strategy. So NATO has become a stronger, fairer, more lethal alliance. Mr. Root had earlier met with Keir Starmer and visited Sheffield Forge Masters with Defence Secretary John Henley. The Prime Minister is committed to spending 2.5% of gross domestic product on defence from April 2027, with the goal of increasing that to 3% over the next Parliament. Although the government's language has been cloudy on the 3% figure, describing it as ambition rather than commitment, Sky News understands that the UK will in fact agree to defence spending to 3.5% of national income within a decade as part of Mr. Rudd's push to rearm NATO and keep us on the US side. 3.5%. Where are you going to find 3.5%? Oh yeah, we'll just take it out. Yeah. We're not raising enough money out of our gross domestic product. Yeah, we'll just take it out of foreign aid because that'll definitely fix it. As reported by Security and Defence editor Deborah Hayes, Secure will likely form a commitment to a further 1.5% of GDP to defence-related areas such as spy agencies and infrastructure. This boost would bolster total broader defence spending to 5% in what is being described as the Hague Investment Plan. NATO countries have faced pressure from US President Donald Trump, who has repeatedly hit our European allies for not spending enough on defence and taking advantage of American taxpayers. He always says that. Mr. Walker said spending more on defence is not about pleasing an audience of one, it's about protecting 1 billion people. America has carried too much of the burden for too long. American allies have broad shoulders, and Europe and Canada will do more of our security share, and that will be backed by America's rock-solid commitment to NATO. NATO plans to increase defence spending among its members. It comes as Secure is facing pressure at home when his priorities lie. Many of his own MPs wanting to see more funding in welfare. Chancellor Rachel Reeves will deliver a spending review on Wednesday, when health and defence are expected to be the winners of the process to allocate cash to the government departments. Cuts to the Department of Work and Pensions have already been announced, but other unprotected departments like the Home Office and the Department of Communications local governments could be braced for real spending squeezes. Yeah, we'll find out on Wednesday, obviously, on the squeeze. But 400% increase, guys. I don't know about you, but I just think it's just excessive. Like, that's just me. Like, do we need to protect our borders? Do we need to protect our NATO alliance against Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea? To a certain extent, yes, but I do think it's like, I just feel like, that what's been happening lately, what's been going on in the world with the tension and the tension that's taking place, the conflicts that are happening, I just feel like the NATO chief is using this as an excuse because of what's happening in America, because of what's happening in Europe with regards to Ukraine. I just feel like it's good smokescreen to say this is the time where you've got no choice. You have to spend the money to invest more in defense. You don't have a choice on this. You've got to do it now. You've got to do it now. And it's just like... But what about the people? You know, we got child poverty here. Yeah, but we need more tanks. Ben Shaw, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. We are being dragged into a war. It certainly feels that way. Where people go to play snooker and darts and keep people also happy, he says. Talking about something else there. John Lowe, White Horse, Wim's World there. Okay, talking about something else there. No worries, guys. Yeah, so spend more money. That's basically what they are saying. Don't do this, West Streeting. The answer to building new NHS hospitals, it could lie in private funding. Exclusive for My News says the NHS Confederation Chief Matthew Taylor argues that capital funding will free up public cash to address the £13.8 billion backlog in repairs to England's crumbling hospitals. Yes, because the private sector will gladly spend their money, guys. No, you can carry on talking, Billy. It's fine. Don't be silly. No need to apologise. Yeah, because private funding will definitely fix all our problems, guys. You know, if we get a private funding into, you know, rebuilding our hospitals and our crumbling hospitals and investment in new bodies and whatnot, it's not like they're going to ask for any money in return. It's not like they're going to ask for any more favours. It's not like they're going to, you know, want more of a say in our national healthcare service. There's not going to be any influence whatsoever. We know West Streeting is more than happy to have more private investment in the national healthcare service. This is something I can see opening up again. What do I mean? Again, I'll tell you. So the National Healthcare Service will not be able to build the hospitals it needs to meet the government's pledge on healthcare without private funded contracts, a senior health leader has warned. So Rachel Reeves has been urged to reverse a ban on private capital investment for NHS infrastructure and introduce a new private finance initiative, that's PFI, deal to help build modern hospitals. The Department of Health is expected to be the biggest winner in the Chancellor spending review this week, with a boost of up to $30 billion at the expense of other public services, including police and council. However, even with the funding, a quarter of the new hospitals that make up government's new hospital programme, which was first introduced under Boris Johnson, that has a rational overhaul under West Streeting, are not expected to begin their construction for at least a decade. And not at least a decade. Can we not start the work on rebuilding some of these broken hospitals now? Do we not have the money to do that? The Health Secretary himself has admitted that the NHS desperately needs new buildings and a new hospital, describing it as quite literally crumbling. The iPaper understands that officials could consider PFI contracts as they examine proposals for more investment in the NHS. Matthew Taylor, Chief Executive of the NHS Confederation, said that bringing in capital funding for new buildings and facilities will free up public money to address the maintenance backlog, but to bring current NHS hospitals up to minimum standard that now stands at $13.8 billion, more than the annual cost of running the entire NHS estate. Yeah, but you don't expect capital funding without something in return. Private businesses and capital funding, you want something back in return in all of this. My God, I hate the square head freak Sterling. He needs to go, says Ginger. Yeah, I know. Good to see you, Simon says. Hope you're doing well, buddy. PFI contracts. Oh God, it's already low on battery, my device. PFI contracts deals that will have private investment to fund the building and maintenance of hospitals and schools in return for regular payments over several years. Oh, okay. Yeah, so basically they want to put our private funding. Oh, okay, so they want to put it in debt. So, you know, like a loan shark. It's like a loan shark, guys. You know how a loan shark goes. You know, you get given this money to fix things up, yeah? But it's like, now you got to pay it back with interest. That's basically what it's going to be. So then you ended up, then now these public bodies are now going to be in debt. Plus paying interest on it as well, because, you know, these private investments want plenty of money back as well. Which were introduced by John Major's Conservative government and expanded en masse under Tony Blair, but they faced criticism for being costly and inflexible, lasting multiple decades. However, the NHS Confederation argues investment in the NHS is failing to keep up with the growing needs of its patients, leaving the health service in England with a funding shortfall of $3.3 billion a year. Taylor urged Reeves to use her spending reviews to specifically lift the PFI ban so that the NHS can build new facilities at pace, including much mooted neighbourhood health hubs, and while also supporting economic growth and local regeneration. Quote, with many major hospitals would not exist today without private investment, and only a handful have been built with purely public capital since PFI was wound down, Taylor told the iPaper. While there are justified criticisms of PFI, we should learn the lessons and explore the benefits so that the NHS can get the money it needs for new facilities. Previous government's delay and underfunding new hospital programs demonstrate the limits of pure public capital approach. In contrast, almost all the private projects have been delivered on time and on budget. This is his argument to say more private investment in the NHS, but we don't want private investment in the NHS. Why private contracts were banned? The decision to ban PFI contracts was made by the then Chancellor Philip Hammond in 2018 after a National Audit Office review of the model revealed that it was a potential risk to government finance, costing taxpayers billions of pounds more than public sector alternatives. Existing PFI contracts remained in place. A 2019 report by the IPPR think tank found that NHS hospital trusts were being crippled by PFI. Initial £13 billion of public sector funding investment in new hospitals would end up costing the NHS in England £80 billion by the time all contracts came into an end, it said. And this is why you don't trust PFIs. £80 billion. See, even Philip Hammond, a Conservative Chancellor, even he saw the writing on the wall here. He saw what was going to happen here. When you have a Conservative that's switching off these PFI contracts, a Conservative, that tells you a lot. Essex Partnership University NHS Foundation Trust, currently the subject of the UK's biggest mental health inquiry, was identified as having the worst payback ratio at 27 times the original borrowed amount. In July 2003, the trust signed a deal for £40 million of private investment, but it will have to pay back £1.1 billion by 2038. See, this is the problem. You're going to pile these hospitals and foundations and trusts into massive amount of debt. Yeah, things will get built, things will get done, and that's all well and good, right? But it's going to leave leave a huge debt. Oh yeah, you've got this tab you need to pay, guys. Oh, we're going to have to make significant cuts because we need to pay off these debts. I'm sorry, but as somebody who doesn't want to be in debt, you know, I would like to say, you know what? Like, I want hospitals built. I want the NHS back on its feet as soon as possible. But you know what? I don't want to throw away taxpayer money because essentially, while you get the things that you want quickly in now, you're going to be paying that back later. It's essentially like kicking the can down the road. Yeah, let's get everything built now, and we'll let it be someone else's problem. We'll let it be the next generation's problem. Because that's essentially what they are essentially saying here. They're saying, let's build everything now and let the next generation worry about it. Or in 10, 20 years' time, you know, let it be the NHS's problem later on. It's not going to be our problem. Let's just get the infrastructure built so that we can stay in power and pat ourselves on the back, and the voters can say, look at what you guys did. That's essentially what he's basically saying here. Leave a black hole to fill a black hole. Exactly, Simon. That's exactly what it's going to be. It's basically opening up another black hole in doing so. The £1.2 billion PFI contract for Bart's Hearts Trust in London, the largest by value in the NHS, in English NHS, paid for the building of the Royal London Hospital, which opened in 2012, has had 845 beds spread across 110 wards. However, the entire project would have cost the trust £6.2 billion by the time it ended. According to Treasury estimates, Bart spent £116 million a year servicing its debt, which is 7.66% of its income, according to an IPPR report. 6.2 billion. 6.2 billion. Well, as we can see down the bottom here, he's got some suggestions to avoid this, but we'll see. NHS Trust has already paid back over 3.5 times what it is borrowed, but still owes £605 million on average, or 44 billion across all 80 PFI London trusts, according to a 2044 analysis by the campaign group We Own It. So according to the estimates from We Own It, we still have to pay back £44 billion of debt from this. It said the Royal Free London NHS Foundation Trust will pay back £921 million over 33 years on capital investment of £54 billion, and Buckinghamshire Healthcare NHS Trust will pay back £1.5 billion over 36 years on a £92 million investment, with both trusts paying 17 times the initial investment. And you want to open up this black hole. Okay, so what's Taylor suggesting to make things better? So, number one, to keep capital projects off balance sheets, as this will prevent the cost of them from contributing to the government's overall debt, while still contributing to economic growth and generation. To have appropriate agreements between the public and private sector over the level of risks they are taking should the project fail, be changed or overspent, to ensure effective contractual management, especially around ongoing maintenance and services, so the NHS would not pay high costs of routine maintenance that it carry out on itself. This does not address the issue of the fact that we will be paying it back plus interest. Taylor, you dumbass. Stephen Banker, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. That explains his thinking. Taylor, a former senior advisor to Tony the Criminal Blair, given the precarious state of public finances, it's vital the NHS be allowed to work with private sector to inject much needed capital into the service. This is better for the health service finances and better for patients who will benefit from receiving care in the 21st century healthcare facilities. Yeah, but all you do is pile up debt. Like, I'm like, don't get me wrong. Like, I don't want us paying. Like, I want things done now, but I also understand about balancing the books. I'm not a fucking idiot. This is not about resurrecting the old model of PFI, but building a new model that learns from our own experiences in other countries around the world. Oh, well, your ideas are absolutely fabulous here. There's surely nothing can go wrong here. NHS Confederation, the membership organisation that speaks for the whole healthcare system in England, Wales and Northern Ireland, cited Wales and Australia as good examples of the country using private investment to modernise their healthcare system. Yeah, just because other countries are doing it, citing Wales, like, doesn't Wales have one of the worst healthcare systems right now in the UK? Just saying. And as for Australia, Australia's a very different. Australia is not the same as us. I don't know what their healthcare system is, but I'm pretty sure it's not the exact same as our model. The Welsh Government holds a 50% equity stake in the Valadi Cancer Centre currently being built in North Cardiff, while private investment makes up the rest of the funding. After the centre is built, the Welsh Government will pay performance-based annual payments for the contract length following, in which the centre will be transferred fully to public ownership. In Melbourne, Australia, the $1 billion... that's 130,000 square metre Victorian Comprehensive Cancer Centre. It's publicly owned and publicly operated, but long-term maintenance is paid for with private investment. Government said it's inherited crumbling NHS estate when it came to power last year. It's increasing capital spending, blah, 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 blah. Blame the Tories, blame the Tories, blame the Tories. Spokesperson said, we look at reforms to our NHS, shift care out of hospitals into community to modernise technology, and how we run our health service will change. We'll continue to work and trust frontline leaders to take decisions to make better healthcare for their communities and their future. So they're not saying no and they're not saying yes. So that's very worrying. I have to listen very carefully to what the Chancellor says in her spending review, because if she mentions PFIs, I'm going to be very angry. Like, here's the thing, guys. Like, I see why. Like, here's the thing. Like, I get. Oh God, moth in here. I totally agree with the. I understand the point that they're making of wanting to invest it now, wanting to get these hospitals fixed, wanting to get new hospitals fixed, new healthcare hubs and whatnot, with the use of private money, funding money, because we don't have it with a cap. We don't have enough of it publicly. I accept that premise. I really, really do. Go away, please, moth. I accept that premise. I understand that we don't have unlimited amount of cash. Okay, but the payback to the private fundings is going to be enormous. And considering that there's already, according to We Own It, 40 billion already that we're still paying back. Like, I don't want these debts. I don't want more mounting debts hanging over us. And I don't want it to be used as a weapon later on down the line. Like, here's the thing, like, my concern is if they do these PFI contracts, right? They do them, and we get lots of infrastructure, a lot of buildings built and all this kind of stuff, guys. And it's like, yeah, this is fantastic. This is great, right? And then you have, like, I don't know, Reform UK becomes the next government, whether it's next election, whether it's in 2 years' time or whatever, right? And then they all decide, and all of a sudden these contracts, they decide to, change the model of the healthcare system, because that's what Nigel Farage will do. He wants to change to an insurance-based system. So we will still be paying back those debts while also, paying for our own healthcare in the future. Like, I don't want the burden being thrown on our next generation, because they're already going to have enough thrown on them as a direct result of Brexit. Like that's kind of my 2 cents on it, guys. Remember when you go straight into nurse training after leaving school? An alternative at university, says Billy. We need to ring fence our needs and let the sharks fight over the rest. The problem is that a lot of the ring fencing that we need is not being ring fenced. That's the problem. Not enough of it's being ring fenced. The things that we need. It is problematic. Right. So the next story I've got is a long one, but before we go to that, I think we need to kind of like take a little break from that, because that is a lot. That is a lot there. To be fair, the next one we got, and I might even play the video from it. But before I show you what that story is, guys, it's been a while since we heard from Broken News, you know, and apparently a terrible news story has come about, courtesy of Broken News, guys. I'm really sorry to share this with you guys, but yeah, these it's unfortunate, but these things happen, I'm afraid.
Welcome to Broken News. A well-known whistleblower has died in what we are going to say are non-suspicious circumstances. The 34-year-old man had last week published damning evidence suggesting the corporate giant he worked for was involved with all manner of evil things. But Broken News understands that's not relevant. Our reporter has more.
Well, it was here in the apartment building just behind me that the body of Daniel Winstanley was found. Authorities say the happily married father of 3 young children appears to have taken his own life by repeatedly hitting himself over the head and body with a hammer and then gaffer taping himself to a kitchen chair. He was an employee of Global Megabrand Incorporated, working in their advanced R&D department just behind me, until last week when he was dismissed for leaking important data, which implicated the technology, pharmaceutical and food giant in corruption, manipulation of safety test results, and getting involved in a teeny-weeny bit of child slavery. Well, the news comes only weeks after the death of 27-year-old Deanna Burnside, another Global Megabrand Incorporated employee and whistleblower who tragically and unexpectedly ended her life by shooting herself in the back of her head and then setting fire to her own body after she'd passed away. Well, that case itself came only days after the tragic and unexpected death of whistleblower Vipal Amritraj, who threw himself through a plate glass window and off the top of a 42-storey building shortly after booking a nice holiday to Crete. Well, some campaigners have called on the police to investigate the deaths as possibly connected to whistleblowing. But a press release from Global Megabrand Incorporated says the deaths are not connected to whistleblowing. So that answers that. Back to you.
Thank you. Good to know that's all settled. What a lovely story. That's all from Broken News. You're up to date.
Yep, there's nothing to see there, guys. Nothing to see at all. It's totally fine. No conspiracy theories. Nothing else of the sort at all, guys. I can assure you there is nothing of the sort at all there. Nothing of the sort. Anyway, guys, make sure if you haven't subscribed to Larry and Paul of Larry and Paul and the work they do, make sure you do so. Link is in the description. And I'll just put the link in the live chat for you guys as well. Do go and support the work that they do if you can. Be greatly appreciated. And if you want to support the work that I'm doing here, you can leave a super chat down below to support the Democratic Penguins Republic. Please feel free to leave any super chats, or if you haven't become a YouTube member, you consider being one for as little as 99p. Links down below. So thank you very much all for being here. It's greatly appreciated, and Pingu appreciates it as well. Now, before I play this video, I just want to I don't know how you feel. I know how you feel about certain things, Stephen Banker, because I know you're here. I'm not sure how you're going to feel about chickens. So I'm gonna, before I play the video, I'm going to just show you what the headline is and what this is about, guys. This one's going to take a while. Sorry, a secret video reveals a gas chamber death of egg industry hens. This is an exclusive of the world's first footage exposed of birds past their egg laying days being suffocated for supermarket meat. So I don't know if I'm going to play the sound or not. I am going to play the video. So if it's a bit too much, you can leave the room if it's a bit distressing. But I think this is important for us to see how some of these hens are being treated. And I think it's really, really important. Good to see you there, Mr. E. Hope you are doing well. So, warning, if you don't like this, turn away now. Okay. So, I'm just warning you now on this. Okay. What is thought to be the world's first video of its kind, footage shows hens being slaughtered using carbon dioxide. The birds, which are deemed to be beyond their useful egg-laying life, are suffocating. They are seen twisting their necks and are also heard gasping for breath and emitting a high-pitched shriek. RSPCA assured said the birds in the footage were already unconscious and were not in pain. I can't read what it says. And this method of slaughter was permitted under is permitted under RSPCA welfare standards. Okay. But yeah, this here is a pretty disgusting, to say the least. You might be shocked, but in 80 years, chickens will do the same to turkeys. So Simon says 55. Yeah, this is the first time I've seen something like this, guys. Look, this is like we know that animals are killed and eaten for human consumption. As a meat eater, I am a meat eater. Like it's not nice to see this, but at the same time, I want to make sure that that these animals are euthanized. They're put down in a humane way. Okay, in the most humane way possible is my position. I don't like that they're being suffocated. If according to this, I don't like that it's being done this way. Personally, I wish it was done in a way that doesn't harm. Now they say that that they were unconscious. I don't know that. Obviously, I can only take the RSPCA's word on this. But honestly, what do you guys honestly think, and how do you feel about it? Because I'm generally kind of got mixed feelings, because a part of me is like, these animals are killed for human meat consumption, for meat consumption, and there's a part of me that's like, well, is it right the way we are killing them? Like that's the other thing as well. So it's a catch-22. So I'll read into it, and yes, segment is over, Stephen Banker. So I'll read into it, and yeah, give me guys your thoughts on this, because I generally want your feedback on this, right? So, secretly recorded footage reveals hens apparently withering in distress and desperately trying to escape as they suffocated to death to provide meat for supermarkets, including Tesco's. In what's thought to be the first video of its kind, the birds are seen twisting their necks and are killed with carbon dioxide. They are also heard gasping for breath and emitting high-pitched shrieks. The recording, which activists said was made at an abattoir endorsed by RSPCA assured, so they approved it, showed hens lowered into the gas chamber and dying over the course of several minutes. God, I hate that picture. Critics say the scenes lay bare the horrors behind egg production in the UK, including the fate of even free-range and organic hens. Hens whose egg production has declined and are dubbed spent before being killed, and their carcasses are packaged for meat. Animal lovers have for years objected to the gassing of pigs with carbon dioxide, warning the animals burn from the inside out and suffer immensely in the last minutes of their lives. Last year, 99% of spent hens were stunned and slaughtered with CO2, and 70% of meat chickens were killed this way, according to government figures. In recent years, carbon dioxide as a slaughter method has gradually replaced electrical water bath stunning, which raised concerns over the inconsistency of stuns. Activist Joan Cobble says the footage highlights the discrepancies between the image of egg and production. The footage taken with hidden cameras shows hens, female chickens used for laying eggs, twisted into stress as they die, and some birds apparently trying to escape. Well, they're being killed. Of course they're going to try and escape. The floor of the gas chamber was littered with dead birds that they jumped out of the crates, according to activist, filmmaker, and vegan activist Joey Carbstrong, who installed the cameras. Mr. Carbstrong and other activists said they shot the video at an abattoir in West Yorkshire run by HFC Poultry. The company denies it was shot at its premise. We don't know. So the company are saying this is not our chicken run, is what they're saying. HFC supplies Cragswick's Foods, one of the UK's large meat producers, which produces the hens into chicken meat products widely sold in Britain. There is no suggestion of wrongdoing either by Cragsworth or the abattoir, as using CS2 is an entirely lawful way to slaughter chickens. However, Mr. Carbstrong said the video exposes the callous treatment of free-range hens when they are no longer profitable. This footage dismantles the entire industry carefully culminated image of happy hens and reveals the horrific truth of how these sensitive birds are discarded, he said. I think we need to keep in mind as well that these are and if there and I know there may be one or two vegans in the chat as well, and because I really want to point this out here. You know, I don't know how accurate this video footage that we saw is really in the UK. But, you know, these guys want to end any kind of consumption of meat. Okay? And I know that we should, as a society, need to move away from meat anyway in order to reduce our emissions on the planet anyway. Even though it's not as much as a contribution to some of the other things that are emitting gas. But obviously, killing animals, we should be looking slowly pulling ourselves away from that. It's kind of hard to do that when everybody's so used to eating meat, and our generation is so used to it as well. Getting people to convert to vegan is near to next impossible. I mean, I'm a prime example of that. I mean, I've had vegan before, and it's never bothered me. But I'm not somebody that's at the moment is willing to give up entirely on meat. Like, my position personally, this is a personal opinion. Okay, I'm just saying this is a personal opinion. I feel I need to eat meat in order to stay strong. I think if I stop eating meat, I become weak and boneless. I know that's not true, but that's just a personality thing for me. But everyone is different. So, what are you guys saying? Meat eaters, they still crave broccoli and onion gravy, says Billy Kershaw. It's a handling over responsibility. I think so, yeah. Carnivores or not, animal welfare must always be in place. Yeah, the question is it, like, the thing is, they're saying this is lawful, but they're saying this is lawful. But my question is this morally right to kill them this way? I think is a good question. But then you ask the question, well, Regan, what is the right way to kill them? What is the right moral way to kill them then? And I think a part of me feels like, well, there isn't, is there? Is there really a righteous moral way to kill animals? Not really. So the public are being misled by labelling and have a right to know the reality of what is behind that they are buying. Mr. Carbstrong added egg-laying hens have been genetically manipulated to produce around 300 eggs per year, far beyond the 10 to 15 eggs naturally laid by their ancestors, the red jungle fowl. So they've, well, yeah. Again, like I'm just covering what he says here, guys. This excessive egg production takes a severe toll on their bodies in multiple ways, regardless of whether they are free-range, barn-kept, or caged. Most hens are crammed into tens of thousands of filthy sheds, where disease runs rampant and cannibalism of dead and dying birds is widespread. Makes it sound very glorifying, doesn't it? After just 18 months of relentless exploitation, they are forced to experience a terrifying and agonizing death before being processed into food products. So the Independent has previously revealed that one case of hens being kept in cruelly overcrowded cages with insufficient water, and another when sick and dying hens were found alongside living ones at a free-range egg farm, supplying leading supermarkets as well as Marks and Spencer's. Around 35 million spent hens a year are killed for their meat. Figures show HFS can process 10,500 birds per hour, according to a document from 2018 at the latest available. Jenny L. Mace, an associated lecturer in animal welfare at the University of Winchester, wrote in a report on the footage that the most concerning findings were the high-pitched shrieking, gasping, and collisions with equipment. When chicken falling against one another and out of the crates, without the use of significantly less aversive gas or gas mixture, it is difficult to see how this method equates to a visible high welfare replacement to a former slaughter method of shackling chickens upside down and stunning in a water bath and a humane death, she wrote. She said CO2 causes respiratory diseases, adding that it describes it as an anesthetic that may be misleading because of the stress of inhaling it causes. There is no suggestion of this case being a bad apple. This is standard practice and in accordance with legislation, she wrote. Yeah, so she's saying that there's no suggestion of it being a bad apple. It's standard practice and in accordance with legislation there. Andrew Opaque, the British Retail Consortium, said on behalf of Tesco's and other supermarkets, our members know how important animal welfare is to their customers and take their responsibility to animal welfare very seriously to ensure that expected standards are being met. RSPCA assured said the birds in the footage were already unconscious and were not in pain. Spokesperson said the footage was deeply upsetting, but that carbon dioxide was permitted under RSPCA welfare standards, adding, however, RSPCA standards set requirements that go above the law to ensure a more humane process. Due to their psychology, when birds lose consciousness, their brains no longer have control of their bodies, which can cause involuntary movements as seen in the footage. This can be incredibly difficult to watch, but the birds are actually unconscious when this happens and are not experiencing pain. Cranks for Food did not respond to a request for comment. I don't know, guys. I don't know. What do you guys honestly think? Do you think this is perfectly justifiable? What do you guys honestly think? I'm kind of torn. So they're claiming that they're unconscious when they're doing that. I'm not sure. I'm not sure, guys. But I thought it was an interesting one for us to discuss. Let me open up the tab here, see what you guys are saying. I did 20 years vegetarian. I was in pretty good shape later, says Billy Kershaw. Okay, Mr. Show-off, okay. I've caught up as long as there's no more videos or pictures. Was vegan for 15 years and not huge on meat and certainly not cow meat or vegetarian, says Stephen Banker. Yeah. No, it's okay, mate. It's okay. I don't know. It's a segment over. Yeah, segment. Cockmorels who were. I don't know, guys. If I'm gonna be honest, the thing is, if it wasn't signed off by the RSPCA, and these guys care about animal welfare standards more than anyone, I think if they hadn't signed it off, I generally don't think you can really do much with it. What more can you do? I'm trying to think of what more needs to be said on this story, really, apart from is it right that if they're killing them this way? Well, I'm not an expert on this, but what I will say is that should this be looked at and renewed? Yes, I think it should be looked at least by should be reviewed and had a looked at and see if there's any recommendations to be made. I don't think it's a case of we need to stop the press, stop all meat production straight away. No, I think that's just silly. But I do think it should be looked at, is what I think is my best recommendation on that. Is this the Deer Hunter? I don't know. I'm not familiar with that show. Right, anyways, I'm moving away from the chicken farms. So the next one I've got for you guys is from The Times. This is so apparently... going back to obviously what could be coming. We honestly don't know if this is going to happen or not, but it's possible. So the police are to get a spending review cash boost to fight crime, according to the Sunday Times. The force is in line for funding increases from Rachel Reeves after senior officers warned Downing Street of stark choices. Now, I don't know if this is going to happen or not. Do I think the police need more? Do we need more bobs on the ground? Yes, I do. Do I think we need more community officers? Yes, I think we do. I think it would just help immensely with our police force. I don't think it's something that we should be cutting in any way, shape, or form. If they do get a cash boost, I will welcome it. I won't dismay it because I do think we need to give our police what they need. Do I trust the Metropolitan Police? Hell no! I've covered enough stories to know what the Metropolitan Police specifically are about. But they are there to supposed to protect the public anyway. So, but it is a kind of we'll wait and see story, really, isn't it? So police will receive an above-inflation boost as senior ministers took negotiations over the spending review down to the wire. So Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, expects to set out real terms increase in police budgets every year, forcing cuts to other areas of the Home Office in a review on Wednesday, setting out spending plans for the next 3 years. Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, was the final minister holding out as Angela Rayner settled with the Treasury on Sunday over funding for councils and her housing department. So Rayner, who had been pushing for higher council budgets as well as money for social housing, was backed by Andy Burnham, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, who warned that Labour's devolution plans would start to wobble if local authorities were again starved of cash. Both Cooper and Rayner were facing significant cuts to pay for increasing NHS and defence spending. So Reeves will use spending reviews to set out Labour's pitch for the next general election, highlighting more cash for health, education and defence, as well as prioritising projects designed to boost growth when allocated $113 billion freed up for infrastructure by looser physical rules. And this will lead to cuts in the Home Office budget. Police chiefs have warned about the stark choices they will face without extra money. So the Times reported last week that Sir Mark Rowley, the head of the Metropolitan Police, and other senior officers have written to Keir Starmer saying that the cuts to the police budget would lead to them downgrading some crimes. Senior officers have warned that Labour's pledge to half knife crime and rates of violence against women and girls, while also recruiting 13,000 additional police officers, were all at risk. This is a great argument, valid point here by the police here. This is a very good valid point here, especially when they're pointing out the pledge, obviously, to half violence against women and girls, obviously do more about tackling knife crime and investing more in the police force. If you're serious about getting tough on crime, you need to put the money in. However, another place they need to put the money in is not just police, it's our justice system. Investing in more courts, investing in more judges, investing in more barristers, and the other thing as well, if you want to add the cap on top of it, prisons. We need to invest more in our prison services because we know they're at capacity right now. Obviously, it's taking time to build the prisons. I totally accept that premise, but we need to make sure we have plenty of investment made into our not just prison service but rehabilitation, so that we can free up more prison spaces there as well. Enjoy while you can afford. Survival can be a nasty business. Food sometimes needs to cheap, says Mr. E. I've never been a vegetarian, but if someone else makes it available as a health food diet and prepared it, I could probably follow it, says Vicky. Yeah, I agree with that assessment. Like, for me, the key to getting more people getting people off meat and more into vegan is you've got to make it cheaper. You've got to make it cheaper than meat. Like, you've got to be able to fight that market. Like, the problem is that it's cheaper for people to buy McDonald's or buy fast food, junky food than it is to buy a healthy salad. Like, let's just call it exactly what it is. Like, it's cheap. It's cheaper for them, and plus it's more tasty for them. You need to make not just healthy food, make healthy food cheaper. You need to make healthy food more tastier as well. So it is a battle, that is. But this part here in terms of pointing this out here about the violence against women and girls and halving knife crime, of course we want to see those numbers go down. I can't stress that enough. It's really, really important. Didn't know death was a respiratory disease, Simon says 55. Yeah. We made lasagna with cream, pasta, garlic, mushrooms, and OI cheese. I did have a physical job at the time. Ooh, that sounds nice, Billy. You have to make me one sometime. It is understood that Reeves has insisted that policing budgets will rise each year of the spending review, which sets funding up to 2028-2029. However, it remains unclear if the boost will match the more than 1 billion extra officers they say they need to cover the existing shortfall. So Cooper is expected to find deeper cuts elsewhere to boost police budgets. The Border Force has warned of long queues at airports as it faces its 1.2 billion budget, saying there would be a threat to national security if it lost frontline staff. Reeves is also expected to increase the school budget by 4.5 billion. The Times revealed on Sunday that the NHS budget will rise annually by 2.8%, totaling about 30 billion a year by 2028. Yeah, we heard about the NHS budget, but the school budget, that's a good sign there. So Reeves will make a virtue of spending restraints by using Labour's physical discipline to attack Nigel Farage for fantasy economics. With Reform UK leading in the polls, the Chancellor will make unusual decisions with her set piece to make speech to make a direct attack on Farage. By the way, this is not actually something that's guaranteed to happen. This is what the Times are basically saying could happen. Yeah, just because the Times are saying this does not mean it is going to happen. It's possible that they may have had some inside knowledge. They have insider knowledge as well, but this is just what possibly could be happening. Spending review will be about spelling out the choice. Reform and the Tories offer more chaos, decline and fantasy economics, with Labour offering stability, investment and change that will make a real difference to working people, as a source close to the Chancellor said. Peter Carl, the Science Secretary, said the public service needed to do their bit by finding efficiencies such as unprotected departments face billions of pounds of cuts. Reeves acknowledged in an interview on Sunday, there are things that I would like to do, but we don't have the money to do. Oh, look, what's that? I've just found $2 billion to invest in more tanks and more weapons and warfare, guys. Remember, when they have money for war, they don't have money for kids. They don't have money for welfare. Remember that. They can always find money for war, but they can't find money for children. Carl told the BBC that we expect the police to start embracing the change they need it to do their bit. Comes as voters say welfare, aid and net zero spending should be paid to cut more for the police and the NHS. The most popular target for cuts is international aid, with 65% backing further savings after Starmer cut $4 billion to pay for defence spending. There's a majority for cuts in supporters for all major parties. Further welfare cuts are backed by 41% of voters, with 18% wanting higher spending, YouGov found, despite threats of a major backbench rebelling with over 4.8 billion in sickness benefit cuts. 31% of Labour voters want more welfare cuts, with 22% wanting higher spending and 40% wanting no change. Cuts to politics to reduce Britain's carbon emissions have supported by 40%, as Reform UK steps up attack on net stupid zero. That's because their Reform are net dummies. However, 30% want spending maintenance and 20% higher spending. Rayner has been pushing for billions of pounds to double council house building. Voters are split on social housing, with 35% are more spending and 23% wanting less. Why would you want less? What's the matter with you? Burnham told Times Radio he fully supports Rayner's demands for more housing cash. He attacked cuts to local authorities' budgets, saying if the council foundation crumbles, then devolution will start to wobble with it. Yeah, we need these houses. This is not a debate on that. Grange mouth. Thank you, Stephen Banker. Yeah, I mentioned that. I mentioned that on my Patreon video, actually, believe it or not. But yeah, fighting crime. Obviously, like I said, I welcome the need of more spending for police, and like I said, we want to see reduced crime. We want to see knife crime reduced. We also want to see violence on women and girls reduced. That really is important. As any crimes up there, of course, I'm sure everyone will agree with me. That is needed. But there are, obviously, we still have a cost of living crisis, and the cost of living crisis is linked to crime as well. It's linked to our housing situation. It's linked to literally a lot of things that are why we are in the situation we are in. I mentioned this on a video that's coming out anyway, but until we get people out of the need of relying on food banks and people being able to efficiently be able to live a life, to be able to afford a decent home, afford the food and pay for their bills, we're still going to have this cost of living crisis. We're still going to have this problem. And building 1.5 million homes sounds great, but if we don't build the homes that we need, it's going to be problematic. And yes, we do need more police force out there, but it's not just the putting the bobs on the ground. It's how much work they do in the background as well. So I do think it's a good thing if that is what it comes to pass. And just for reference, before I go to the final story, guys, if you want to check out the link for Rumble down below, I posted it already. If you guys want my thoughts on what's happened in the Middle East with regards to the Nautilus boat, where Greta Thunberg and the crew were apprehended by Israel, I covered it in an explainer video. Just a couple, it would have come out literally just a couple of hours ago on Rumble. So if you guys want to check that out, you just click on the Rumble link down below. It will take you to, it'll be probably the first video you see on the front of the page. If you guys want to check out that and to find out my thoughts on Greta Thunberg, on the situation currently that's happening there, guys, just for reference. And yes, tomorrow I will cover what's happening in Los Angeles. I can assure you of that. I will probably talk about it tomorrow morning as well, as just for reference as well, because I have been following it closely, guys. I can assure you of that as well. So the final story I've got for you guys is something that Nigel Farage was bragging about today as well. Nigel Farage, parachuting coal mine fantasy, says a lot about what he really thinks of working people. The Reform leader pledges to restart Welsh blast furnaces. Ignores the practical realities of flooded pits, collapsed infrastructure, and actual wishes of working people, argues Josh Myoma. Before I even go into this piece, so I haven't watched the full speech, but I saw clips of his speech that he made. You know, he's promising the world, guys. He's going to do the impossible for people. Nigel Farage said he's going to bring back the blast furnaces. He's going to open up coal mines so that we can stop importing coal, guys. Yeah, so instead of bringing in exported coal from Poland or somewhere, he wants British coal for British people. Yeah, it sounds good on paper, but it just means we're contributing more to the climate catastrophe in doing so. Oh, and by the way, that doesn't just opening up a coal mine doesn't mean, just because we're in the modern 21st century, doesn't necessarily mean that people who go down there and mine doesn't mean that their lives are that they're still safe. Like, they're still being at risk here. And by the way, Nigel Farage making all these pledges. Can anyone still tell me what Nigel Farage has done for the people of Clacton throughout this time? Oh, that's right. He still has done fuck all. Yeah, indeed. Like, and here's the thing. Like, I want to protect jobs in Wales. I want to protect these jobs when it comes to the Port Talbot and Grangemouth, as Stephen Banker points out as well. Like, I want these jobs protected. And there are ways we can protect them. But this man on the front of your screen does not give a shit about working people. He does not care about working people. He's a charlatan. He's a liar. He's a millionaire. He was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. He's just a very good talker. All he does is talk. He's a talker. He's not a doer. And that is the difference between him and a lot of other politicians, okay? He does nothing but talking. You should not trust this man. Nigel Farage has announced plans, or rather vague hopes, to reopen shuttered coal mines in Wales. It is an unusual stance for a millionaire supporter of Margaret Thatcher. In their speech today, the Reform UK leader has proposed reopening coal mines in Wales to revive British steel making at Port Talbot, where the coal-powered blast furnace will shut in October 2024. The move from Tata Steel brought to an end the highly intensive polluting methods of steel making in South Wales. It was part of a restructure leading to the loss of around 2,800 jobs. Now, in a bid to boost support ahead of Wales' seed elections next May, Farage is proposing reviving coal mining and reopening the blast furnaces. A proposal likely to cost billions if even possible. Reform is currently polling second to Welsh independence backers Plaid Cymru, followed by Labour, which is governed in Wales since devolution began at the turn of the millennium. Listen, I've said this already. Labour need to be kicked to the curb. Welsh need a new government, even if it's one between Reform and Plaid Cymru. Labour need to sit on the sidelines. They've been in power for far too long. It will shake up Welsh politics. It is much needed. The plan would involve mining coking coal from nearby pits in South Wales to power old blast furnaces, possibly as a cheaper alternative to electric furnaces. But former blast furnaces are extremely difficult and sometimes impossible to restart, and that's the problem. One article suggested it would cost up to £3 billion, I read, to restart if they wanted to build a brand new one. If they couldn't restart the one they have, it would cost up to £3 billion to build and to set up a new one. Port Talbot previously imported its coal from as far as Australia. Why didn't they get it from Poland? Poland has tons of coal. Can we not get them for Poland? Sorry, just answers on a postcard, please. Reform sources told the Mail it was a long-term plan, acknowledging won't be quick nor easy. But the Times reports the proposal to present Reform as a credible party of government in an attempt to win over working-class voters from Labour. Only last month, a note from British largest miners gathering, the Durham Miners Gala, included a quote from Farage saying, "I support Margaret Thatcher. She was right. Pit closures may have caused a little pain for some, but it had to happen." The General Secretary of the Durham Mines Association launched a scathing attack on Reform UK, saying the party will never be invited to the historic event and that he would boycott the event if they were asked to attend, LBC have reported. It's not clear who the real audience is for Reform's coal nostalgia. Speaking of Byline Times, Charles Tuvey, General Secretary of the Welsh Trade Union Congress, that's the TUC's Cymru, said reopening coal mines isn't a serious plan, it's a political stunt. Wales TUC has supported an energy policy based on diversity and flexibility, including clean technology like carbon capture and storage. Carbon capture does not work, just for reference. But not a return to a deep and open cast coal. What communities need right now is a just transition, not empty promises. The proposal comes from someone who admired Margaret Thatcher, the very Prime Minister who closed the pits and who counts Donald Trump among his closest allies. Communities in Wales remember the devastation caused by those policies. They deserve better than recycled rhetoric from people who supported the dismantling of our industrial heartlands. And she called for long-term investment in skill, infrastructure and fair work, not false hope and instability from those offering headlines instead of solutions. Anthony Slaughter, leader of the Welsh Green Party, told me the idea was optimistic nonsense from Farage. It can't happen, it won't happen, it shouldn't happen. And he's right to highlight how badly Port Talbot was dealt with. But the transition to green steel production should have happened a decade ago. Even the unions acknowledge the need for change. We hear a lot more of these promises from this gang of snake oil salesmen. But where the local appetite for reviving colleges have been shuffled for decades. A local Byline Times reader from near Wales, his former big pit in Tolkien, put it this way. I live in the former coal mine area. He's living in Cloud Cuckoo Land. Well, who does he think will go down the mines? The young men around here won't do it. Many mines are filled in or are flooded, like Kydorf Valley there. Has council officers built on it. Pegadere Pendelia, a colliery closed since 1901, has housing on top of it. The Power Halls itself is housing. The Six Bells site in Girick, home to lethal explosions killing 45 to 48 miners in 1960. It's currently being developed for housing and a school. Yeah, we're just going to knock all these... We're going to knock all this out. This is what Reform UK are saying, guys. They're going to knock all this building out the way. Oh, you've got a home here. Sorry, we're going to move your home out the way because we need to dig the coal that's literally outside your garden. Yeah, sorry, you're going to have to move out of your house. Yeah, I think you guys see where I'm coming from. She argued that Reform wants to plunder Wales for its riches and Wales won't benefit. Wales has moved on. Nature has returned. The valley still with the legacy of dangerous coal tips. Housing, school and offices have replaced areas where mines were. How many people come out of the Big Pits Museum and think it's a job they like to do? Several other Welsh voters noted that closed mines tend to flood and collapse, making reopening practically impossible. I mean, yeah, in theory, yes. In theory, you can open the coal mines. In theory, you could do it. Okay? But it would cost a shit ton of money to do so, guys. Yeah, and you would have to literally build... If you were to open those mines, you would literally have to air out. Obviously, the air would be extremely dangerous. You also have to build new... obviously, because of the structure will be old as well. So how much of the beams that were put in before, you'd have to put in new beams as well before you even go further deep into it, because obviously it's not safe because of, again, as it says there, flooding and collapse. Like, in theory, yes, but in terms of the cost of it and the damage to climate, nah, I think it's just not worth it, guys. Just not worth it. Coal extraction has also become increasingly expensive as seams go deeper underground. The extraction of what's left likely to come at enormous costs. The infrastructure above and below ground is lost when mines close, and it would cost huge sums to rebuild. As one Welsh reader put it, they don't reopen. So responding to proposals on threads and other responses simultaneously, one of my brothers-in-laws was at Bates Pits in Blythe, Northumberland when the miners' strike began. It was a modern pit with all the best equipment underground, and when they walked out, they knew they weren't coming back because the maintenance backup was never provided. 1 year later, there were literally no tunnels underground, one wrote. Other Welsh residents argue that young people in former mining areas have no interest in returning to pit work. Others questioned who will actually volunteer to work in dangerous underground conditions rather than green jobs or anything else available. Most former miners in the UK are now retired, suffering from mine-related health issues or no longer alive. Reeves accused the party of stereotyping Welsh working-class communities and leaked the proposal to reform fossil fuel industry backing. Coal mines were already closing rapidly before the 1980s miners' strike, meaning most have been derelicted for at least 40 years. Reader Helen Rowland wrote, I'd have a friend what he thought about reintroducing mines, but he died of mine-related lung disease, Linda Rossi added. Nobody in South Wales wants coal mining back. Vote for us and we'll send you back down the coal mines. It's literally effing insane, another noted. Others parodied the plans. Come on, people of Wales. Vote to send your kids and grandkids down the mines. In the north, they're offering 3 flat caps and a whippet. Clifford in Wales wrote, the last deep mine, Tower Godley, closed in 2008. This really is just nostalgia. Where does Farage think he fits, where he thinks the fit, wealthy and willing miners are? Coal miners get thermosunia, COPD, asbestos, cancer, silicose, mining diseases, higher mortality rates are the result, another reader said on Blue Sky. Do you know where I actually think they could get the miners from? Let me just read this last bit. In his speech on Monday, Farage will accuse Labour of betraying Wales's great heritage by allowing the closure of the last blast furnaces at Port Steel works. The Mail reported the site remains at work processing but not producing enough steel. Before I go to the next bit, do you know honestly where I think he could get the workers from? If this insane plan was to come to fruition, he would get foreigners to go down the mines. I'm not kidding. He would get migrants to go down and do it. Because that's what he would do. That is something Nigel Farage would do. He would send the migrants down there. Tata plans to introduce electric arc furnaces for greener production of virgin primary steel by the end of 2027, but high energy costs are likely to prove a hurdle. Reopening former coal mines will likely cost far more than the current energy mix. However, while Wales has once had 620 mines employing 232,000 people, the last deep mine closed in 2008. So the last one was more than 20 years. So more than 20 years? No. Do your maths, Regan. About 17 years. 17 years if I'm right. So 17 years ago was our last deep mine closed. Few expect Nigel Farage to add coal mining to his list of second jobs, but who else would volunteer? As one reform opponent put it, potential coal miners today might prefer to install solar panels, heat pumps and house insulation rather than dying from black lung. Yeah, I think they would prefer that. Farage is willing to make big outlandish promises to get elected. Media outlets appeared happy to spun him on without proper probing. Whether Welsh voters will buy it is another question altogether. Given that Reform don't have a leader in Wales, or even it seems a named spokesperson, question whether voters in Wales trust a privately educated former banker to revive their economy. See, the thing is that Barline Times will tell you straight as it is here, but the thing is that if you go on GB News, if you go on Talk TV, if you go on certain YouTube channels, and I say certain YouTubers and on certain outlets, like, they will not frame it as this with this much accuracy. Because the risk of reform is that voters see through their latest plans, as this is a patronising idea of what working class people actually want to do in 2025. Yeah, I don't think coal mining is something that people want to go back to, if I'm personally honest. You know, I mean, yeah, nice nostalgia idea, but the only thing I can see people doing it is if Nigel Farage wants to, because I can see a world where Nigel Farage opens up a coal mine and sends migrants down there. If you want to stay in the UK, you have to work the coal mine. Like, I can see him being that evil and that cruel. Like, I really can. And it's just, yeah, it's just the cost is not worth it. We don't want to go back to those days. Like, I understand the frustration of importing the coal. I kind of don't understand why we're not getting it from Poland, which is a lot closer. But there must be cost-related issues for it. But we're still getting it all the way from Australia does raise some eyebrows, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean, the only coal mine that's been really talked about possibly doing is the one in Cumbria in England. But that has been hit back many times. So that's one that's the only potentially one. But even that has still had its fair share of fight backs for sure, guys. But I think Nigel's talking out of his arse on it, but we should not be taking anything the man says seriously, because like I've always said, guys, like, until Nigel Farage actually does something, like, he talks a lot of shit, but he doesn't back it up. Like, you should not be taking the man seriously. Like, I don't know how many times I have to say this. Like, what has he done to improve people's lives? This is the question I've said 1,000 times. What has he done to improve people's lives? What has he done to improve the lives of people of Clacton? Answers on a postcard. Again, not a single person who's subscribed to my channel, especially reformed subscribers, because I know there's reformed subscribers. Not a single one of them has commented and saying what he's actually done to make their lives better. But hey ho, there you go. So guys, I hope you found some of the news stories we covered today interesting. But before we go, we have one last funny video. Just a reminder, I'll be back tomorrow with another Good Morning Show at 8 AM. I'll be talking about everything that's going on in the world, including what's happened with. We'll talk a bit about the Greta Thunberg. See if there's an update on that. We'll also talk about what's been happening in Los Angeles in particular as well, because that's news to cover as well as other stories taking place around the world. I'll be giving tomorrow's daily quota, the local weather, and I'll be talking about the Blue Lagoon where I went to in Iceland as well. And that's all on tomorrow morning at 8 AM. I'll also be covering more on the world news on the Snowflake Corner at 6 PM tomorrow as well. So if you guys can join me for that, it would be greatly appreciated. So I really want to say thank you guys for coming along. Much appreciated. But of course, can't leave without a very, very important man to see ourselves out here. It is Garron once again. All I'm going to say is you guys are going to enjoy this one. This one is funny as fuck.
Okay, I'll fucking do my American impression again. You weren't ready for it to go away. This is an impression of an American getting a divorce. I'm going to cram in as many Americanisms as I can. First, here's an Irish divorce. Here, we're getting a divorce. I'm sick of your fucking shite. Thank God, I've been sick of you for 25 fucking years. Now, here's the American.
Hey, Crystal, what's wrong? You've hardly touched your zucchini noodles. You need some more cilantro? Huh? A letter from our attorney, Bob Schlitzwater. Great guy. I met him in junior high. Crystal, please. We can work this thing out. I can't just let you slip away like you're covered in canola oil. We just had an amazing weekend down on the creek with the RV for spring break. It was 102 Fahrenheit. I took the boys to Walmart and bought them some ammunition. I even got you some Girl Scout cookies. I put it all on my American Express credit card.
Dang it, how can you just frickin' leave all this behind? Our beautiful starter home, a duplex condo in the suburbs? What about our student loans? Oh yeah, real mature, Patty, real mature. Sorry, her name was Crystal. I've accidentally changed it to Patty. I got very passionate. Well, maybe if you didn't spend all our goddamn money on vitamins and ointment and aluminum foil at Walgreens, we wouldn't be in this goddamn mess.
What about our kids? Tanner and Chuck and Bob and Kip and Timmy and Todd and Ted and Chad and Portia and Dylan, but spelled differently so it's a girl name.
Patty, those are our kids. This is our family. Our Mormon family. I'm gonna go down in my man cave in the basement and watch sports with the guys. And yeah, Patty, maybe I'll have a little bit of hard liquor. Can a guy let loose around here? Jeez, give me a break. Okay, that was it. Every American thing in one video. It's fucking done with now. Stay delicious and follow me. I'm delicious.
That's it. So now you know how an American gets a divorce, guys. Well, from the expert himself. There it is. I hope you guys found that hilarious, because I sure did find that funny. Oh, that was a good laugh, guys. So thank you guys all for coming along tonight. Much appreciated. Thank you guys for all your comments. No super chats or memberships tonight, but that's okay. I appreciate you guys all being here nonetheless. So I really do appreciate it. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow morning. So hopefully I'll see you guys there. Enjoy the rest of your week, whatever you guys are doing. Enjoy the rest of your Monday evening, what you guys planned as well. Stay safe as always. But just before I go, if you haven't already, please hit that like button. We greatly appreciate it. Share this across social media. Subscribe if you haven't already. Check out Rumble and Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms as well. And like I said, if you want to financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p. You can also join me on Rumble and Patreon, like I always said. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.